like this end of the studio because it's the one that's got the radiator. It's I don't know. It's not that cold, but it's not. We're not kind of used to particularly low temperatures in the UK. Certainly in Scotland, but not in Yorkshire. It's still never what some of you must experience. I think if we get to sort of -5, and they threaten, they're always trying to frighten us on the news. The fear-mongering weather pundits always like to tell us that it's going to snow, and everybody goes into a panic. I don't know if there's some commercial reason for that, or there is some psychological control factors going on. I don't know, but they threaten that. I remember as a kid, it used to snow all the time, but we never came to a standstill. We do now. We do ever since the Leaves on the Track episode. I think that's on the railway. They stopped trains running when there were leaves on the track. That was and ever since that, there seems to be a thing now. It was sort of, but it's going to be too hot. People might die when it gets really hot. And all that sort of stuff. And there are places in the world where that happens, but I don't think it's UK. Anyway, I digress. So I was going to talk about, and I'm going to do it later. We've got a lesson later. I'll probably talk about it in that, which is how artists are a funny bunch. They seem to. I've just seen a guy now, and he was going on about how people have copied his work and he's lost count and he's upset about that. And another one was you see the white paper and you don't know how to, you just freeze, and just seem to spend more time moaning about the situation than just getting on and do it. And I don't know whether that's my, my way of this was. I like this one because of the. The transposition of color into tone in the first instance. I'm going to draw this guy now. I'm back in the charcoal. So if you're back on charcoal, if I get back into charcoal, there's nothing better than a beardy man because it's like you can then revisit all the charcoal ways without having to struggle too much in terms of getting your head around the shapes and all the rest of it. Because draw beards. You want to learn how to work in charcoal. Draw men with beards, old men with beards. You never fail. And it's a great way to learn. And then ultimately, then you can get on to doing other things. But start with old men with beards. Look at anybody, Oliver Syn, or all the great charcoal artists. All of them paint or draw rather. Old men with beards primarily. There's a lot of them. So this was yesterday. I like that. I like the idea of the I always say work from color because of the nuances of light and shade, which are eliminated when you desaturate. It's not true with film when there's continuous tone. There isn't continuous tone with digital photography, no matter how many pixels you can muster. It's not continuous tone. It can never be, can it? But if it's film, black and white, it's a different matter. But if it's desaturated image, you lose stuff. And I keep threatening to put something. I'll put something on the membership. I'll show you an image that's color and a desaturated one. And you'll see the loss in terms of tones. And I know I'm cancelling membership, but I'm just going to stick it on anyway. But I'll keep saying to people, don't sign up, and please can you cancel your membership, because it's not, YouTube's a waste of time. So I've come to that conclusion. So I'm not gonna focus that on that. I want to focus on courses and workshops. I want to do another workshop, but because of the uptake last time, it was really bad. It was, I think the last one I did, there was one person there. So, and it's 4 weeks of effort for me. I still have to do the same amount of effort for one person. So 4 weeks, and I earned 150 quid. So nobody, it's a bit like the membership thing. People pay £9 a month or whatever it is. Google take half of that. YouTube take half of that. So effectively, I am doing 8. 2 a week, 8 a month, 8 hours a month for £3 an hour. Basically, that's what I'm doing, because I only get, you pay £4, £5, £4, whatever. So it's really not a good idea to do the. I'd rather do this, and then everybody else, and then if you want to a course or you want to do the workshop, then we'll do that. I'm not paying YouTube, you know, just so I can show it my stuff to, I don't know, 15 people a week or whatever it is. I've got 15,000 subscribers, and I'm pretty sure that only 100 people ever get to see what I do. There's some crazy thing about it doesn't know who I am, does not understand my message. I tell you what, though, artists are diverse creatures. Why wouldn't we actually have a more than one message? You know what I mean? Oh, I can't cope with this stupidity. I tell you, the older I get, stupidity becomes more prevalent. And these days, stupidity seems to be the profit center. You know what I mean? You can profit out of stupidity more than you ever could. Anyway, rant over. Yeah, so I like that. I like the idea of this drawing from color to black and white has created this skill, if you like, that I can see color as tone. A side effect, I know, but I didn't really think about it until Kevin mentioned about this, not seeing color as tone. Yeah, so the theme of this, I've gone off on one. I think, odd paper. So I can't guarantee how this is going to work out. We were clearing the attic, and I found these old sketchbooks the kids had. So I have no idea what this paper is. So you get what you get, right? So this idea of talent and practice, I'm not really I won't say the word's fan, but you know, the practice, the talent thing. I can't use that because it's too. The paper hasn't got enough surface on it. That was my homemade charcoal. Let me just get this in somewhere where it wants to be, and then I can then talk about what I need to talk about. This, by the way, is the dots. It may not look like the dots, but it is the dots. It's me finding the locations of things in order to start drawing. This is not drawing, by the way. This is not the drawing stage. So, and a lot of people start drawing at this stage, and I always say to me, you're drawing too soon. You haven't figured out where stuff is yet. So you got to do that before you start drawing. And anyway, so I'm now roughly where everything needs to be, and I can start to concentrate a bit more. You can see how it works. It's not too difficult to understand, though. I don't think. I think people worry about this stage because it's so loose, and if you can't be loose and unafraid at this stage, then when can you be? You know, this is the stage to make the mistake. So just go for it, man. Go for it. Don't hold back. You don't know what you might find. You might find that you're able to manifest really quickly, which is all the time it was hiding from you. All the time you were burying your manifestation, your creativity under your trepidation and fear. It was, yeah. The trouble with my creativity is buried under fear. Anyway, so this talent thing, right? I've never really been a fan of that. And when people say that to me now, even now, but when they used to say to me, this is from a completely different point of view. And when I saw this comment, and the people were saying, oh, they kind of chronologically broke down the process of 3 months to get motor skills up and all 3 years or whatever. And but I kind of thought about it like that and thought, well, no, talent is a consequence of hard work, and practice, which is what people, I suppose, would deem to be hard work. But so I was always a bit insulted when people said that, to me, you're talented, and you're very talented. And even now they say that, but it's only because they're the people that say it now are unaware of what it is, really it is. And I mean, I suppose I don't know what it really is, but what I do know is that it's not God-given. It's not a God. It may be God. You may believe, right? And you've got faith and all the rest of it. I'll let you have that. I've no feelings one way or the other. If you want to designate your work, your effort, your creativity to someone else, if you want to, it's a bit like gratitude. It's that kind of thing. Blame and gratitude are two sides, exactly the same things. When I was doing the joy principle thing, I was trying to explain the difference between gratitude and blame, and in that there was no difference. And I got myself in knots trying to convince people. Oh no. So as I said, if you want to assign your abilities to someone else, it's not my. Oh no, it's not my doing. It's somebody else is doing. Then that's fine. That's fine by me. But it could be genetic. The thing about people being able to run fast in a straight line or jump because they've got, is it twitch muscles or extended twitch muscles or whatever it is. So there's a genetic reason for it, basically. It could be that. That could be the reason why. And I'm not talking about physical genetics. It could be your brain cells are genetically biased towards being able to do this. I don't know. But I think it's one of those things that, you try and explain it on something, that it becomes even more. As I said, with artists, being an artist is not, or being creative is not something that we have the tools to comprehend, essentially, which is why you get so many moaning and whinging about, oh, this and that and the other, and I ain't got the studio, this, that, and all the stuff they come out with. You just think, oh, just get on with it. But as I said, because it's so complicated, it's probably why, and people are trying to fathom it. This is the thing: is it talent or is it practice thing? And I put that thing on yesterday about it's nothing to do with practice, and it hasn't. Doing something repeatedly in a non-deliberate way, in that. Instead of doing making the work, doing the drawing or the portrait or whatever it is, you practice doing something else. Maybe components of the portrait, but you practice. So it's kind of deferring the process, because instead of doing the thing, you're doing something else in order to prepare to do this thing. And a lot of people would think that was perfectly acceptable. That's how it is. This is the thing about, as soon as you say it's not about practice, it that goes against all that they believe, and it's almost like a religion. It's almost they don't believe that to be the case, so it just goes against their beliefs and all the things they've been taught and told. And the other side to it is that if I come along and say it's not about practice, and someone spent 10 years practicing, they can't agree with me, can they? Because it's like they're saying, "No, I've just wasted 10 years. I wasted 10 years on that." So it's complicated, isn't it? So this idea of for me of talent is as a reason for doing it. I find it difficult to appreciate, to align with what I do, because the thing I noticed when I came back was a lot of the thing. There are muscle memory. I didn't play the guitar for a long time, and I picked it up mainly because I bought Jackson one, and it was, can you teach me, Dad, kind of thing. Although I was a pretty rubbish teacher, to be honest. It's a bit like, can you teach me to drive? I was a bit rubbish at that as well. But we managed to do it, and same with the guitar. But I picked it up and started playing again. And everything that I'd learned, because I played it all the time when I was like a teenager, and I never put it down. In fact, I wanted to be a musician. I ain't got the I've got the skills to do it, but I haven't got the it's not dedication. It's the same thing as this. Is this? It's the same kind of requirements. You know, they practice often and repeated this. That. I ain't got all that. For me, which is why I have to do this, because I'll tell you why I mentioned the guitar in a minute. But what I was saying is that, and I'll tell you about the firework thing. So when I came back to doing this, to play the guitar, I could remember, or I could play all the old things that I've learned to play all those years ago. Some, blimey, probably 35 years ago, and I could play them. I could still play them. So muscle memory was still strong. You know, it probably, I don't know. It's riding a bike thing, isn't it? And I think that's probably what happened with when I came back to this, that it was still there, and I could see that there were some remnants of what I used to do, and rubbish paper, rubbish charcoal. By the way, absolute terrible. And I say this all the time with people, is that, and I know I'm drifting off, and you'll have to get used to what I do with this. I'm a bit like Billy Connolly, you know, when he starts on one story, jumps in with another, and then goes back to the original. That's me. I always say that's why I like Billy Connolly, because that's what he did. The comedian, if you bless him, I think he's got Parkinson's. I know I think he has. Bless him. Anyway, great man. Didn't really like him at the time, I remember. And he's an artist now, funnily enough, as well. Or makes art, should we say. Designation artist is designated artist is a strange thing. Like he wasn't before, you know, that kind of thing. It must have been. Anyway, so I come back to it, and I've got all these remnants of these skills. So the same is true of this. I think that I'm able to do things that are based on the remnants of what I practiced before, and but I can't put it down just to that. I can't put that to I could come back and did it after 30 years, and suddenly I'm drawing because of all those years of practice before. Because the things that I do aren't the same as what I did before. I never drew faces before. I never drew portraits before. I just drew scenes. I painted scenes. You've seen the scenes I've shown you. So so it wasn't like I was recalling that. Maybe the motor skills, yeah, I get that. But I think that awakened within me was still, or dormant within me after all those years, was this desire to be creative, desire to create, I suppose. I think that's always in me. I think it's in all of us. It doesn't get old. That creativity doesn't get old. It's always going to be a force that it gets distorted by time. You know, it's sort of life distorts it in our because it's one of those things. You know, it's the way you think about what you're doing affects, no matter whether it's being creative, whatever. But the way you think about what you're doing affects the way you do it. And I think creativity is more than anything is dependent on your attitude and mood and you know, your mental perspective. I think it's definitely one of those things. And just as I'll dip back into the doing thing, because this charcoal, because the paper has no surface, so the charcoal doesn't make, hasn't got clear. There isn't clarity in the in the in the lines. So there's no crispness or sharpness to the lines. You tend to get this. You see it a lot in people working charcoal. You tend to get this blurry kind of smudgy kind of mark making. It's something I don't like. I don't like it because it's a bit like the people that paint and then smudge. I saw an amazing painter, or amazing to many painter, and respected painter today. And I tell you, every one of her paintings are out of focus. Not shot out of focus. You smudge the hell out of it so it becomes something like, it's almost like they're, you know, as I say, Vaseline on the lens kind of paintings. Amazing things, you know, sort of full figures in black reclining in chairs, but the whole thing is shot with a Vaseline lens. And that, just be brave, make marks. If they're wrong notes, so what? Make a sharp edge, make it crisp, make a point. This fuzziness thing, and this is what happens with this. It always, you know, it's like what you're afraid of. Just make the mark, make it crisp, and make it bold, and you know, just I don't know. Which is, as I say, this is what this charcoal is doing. So the talent thing. I'm doing the Billy Collins thing now. I'm going back to what I was talking about before. The talent thing, I think, is, it's a strange, it's almost like creativity and talent are two different things. You know, they don't, if somebody said to me, you're very creative, I'd be more accepting of that as a compliment than if they said you're very talented. So it's as I say, this kind of determined by, they're a million miles apart, but they're the same thing in a way. But it's very rare that people will refer to your creativity. It's always about talent, because it's deemed to be something that facilitates whatever it is that you're trying to, you know, you're creating. It's the talent that does it, you know. And then, as I say, this idea that it's a God-given thing. All of a sudden, it's not my fault that I'm lucky then, aren't I? You know, I'm lucky that I'm talented, and I thank God that I'm talented. People say that, don't they? I mean, you might say that. I thank God I'm talented. I got, you know, as I say, I've got no, because my experience of faith was, you know, brought up as a Catholic. I'm kind of, and now the complete opposite, I suppose, in that, you know, the idea of a God being the cause and the reason that I can do this. I can't. It doesn't sit well with me. I would say it might with others, but it doesn't sit well with me. But equally, I think that the DNA thing, you know, it's a genetic thing, that doesn't sit well with me either, because my family are not creative at all, and the wife is the same, and yet she ended up being a fashion designer and being an amazing creative person. So how's that happen? What makes us, you know, these creative entities? I can understand it with my lads. You know, they're both artists, and they were brought up in an artistic environment, in a creative environment, and they saw me and the wife doing our thing. So and all that meant, and but not for me. You know, so genetics is not an argument I can use. It's because my parents were artists. You know, and there are people that are lucky enough. I think that with my lads, they're really lucky that they had us to, if they were to be artists. I mean, I'll be honest, and I did not want them to be artists. I wanted them to get proper jobs. only because of all the heartache that doing this, being creative, brings. You know, this world's not made for creative people. It's made for people that toe the line. You know, do provide a known outcome to things. It's the, you know, it's the, and it affects the painter. It affects the painters and creative people just the same. You know, there are lots of people that are expected to meet a criteria, and it's described. You know when you can see these people that say this is how it's done. The people that were commenting on this post about talent and practice. Same people. Oh, there's a way. This is the way. You know, they're everywhere. But the trouble is that creative people, and I can only say that these people aren't creative, because creative people will not accept that this is the way that they should do it, and this is the only way it should be done. That's not what creative people are like. Not the ones I know. They'll all say, "Oh, hang on a minute, I think there's a better way. They're doing it that, or in fact, I think there's a different way to do that, and let's try that, and let's just see what happens." Instead of following the designated rules, which these people will push. So that's the reason why I didn't want the lads to be artists, because either you toe the line and be like everybody else and follow the rules, which is anti-creative as far as I'm concerned, or you're going to suffer and struggle because you don't get rewarded for your efforts. And I know that firsthand, and I see that now, unfortunately, in my lads, that they are relentless. Because that's the only thing I would say that I encourage within my lads, and that is relentlessness. And I think it might be DNA, that thing, because that's me. There is nothing that ever stops me. You know, when code, I couldn't break the code, and I had to sort of make it do whatever it wanted to do, and I didn't know JavaScript at the time, but I just night after night, and I'd do that. That is me. And then the client would turn around and he won't pay me for doing it. But I still, this is some of the biggest clients in the world, biggest companies in the world, and they take 30 months to pay me, or they wouldn't pay me at all. And I've turned off code, and I've taken down websites, and you can't do that. You can't do that. Well, you've got to pay me for doing it, mate. And so relentlessness is a trait, I suppose, that we've got. The wife's got it, I've got it. It's just, you have to be, don't you? And to be honest, what are you here for? If not to push through. You're not here just to say, "Oh, I can't open that door. I don't care what's behind it. I'm just gonna sit here and then rot." both intellectually and physically. You got to push the door open. Otherwise, there's no point in being here. Anyway, that's a bit of another rant. If you probably noticed, I'm a bit of a rant this morning. So, So the idea of talent being associated or designated as somebody else's fault, as I say, whether it's a deity or a genetic code. I don't know. When I got the after the cancer, I went into the how to live a joyful life thing. I got well into the whole existence stuff. So as a spirit, as an entity thing, not spirituality, but and I don't know. Is creativity a force? Is it a form of life? Is it part of our life force? I don't know. But the desire to do it, to be creative, is something that I'm really quite aware of, and the consequence of doing it, I'm aware of as well. So the way it makes you feel to do it, not the outcome so much. The outcomes, yeah. I mean, I can tell. The reason why I'm not outcome driven, I can tell I'm not outcome driven is because afterwards they get put away and forgotten about, and then when I look at them later on, I'm impressed by them because at the time I did them, it was just the doing was more important than the outcome. So it's, as I say, it's a strange thing, this idea that it has to be designated in some way to an approach or a reason, which is then sort of practice, and then some say that you can't. Talent and practice is the key. Well, first of all, I can't tell you what talent is, and secondly, doing something repeatedly, it's like I don't know what that does. I have no idea. I know about the skills you develop because of the practice, but you can do that by just making work. So, and I always say that artists don't practice; they just make work. But repeatedly doing something over and over again, that's probably not to do with what you're about to do, because it's just I'm practicing noses or whatever. That seems like putting off the event thing. Just do it. Just make the work, that whatever it is you're going to do that. Just do it. Because I think this is more like I was saying about the firework thing. It happens right now. The creativity and the skill development is happening right now. It's not happening in the sketchbook and then it's going to come and live on here, because that is, in a way, the drawing in the sketchbook is what's happening right now. But you're under this impression that it's not the real thing. In the sketchbook, it's not the real thing. This is, in the sketchbook, it's just me practicing. And then you get the people that don't use sketchbooks as sketchbooks, and that in a way is proving my point, because they make wonderful work in a sketchbook and then sell the sketchbook. There's a woman that I know who does watercolors in the sketchbook and calls it a sketchbook. And I said to her, I wouldn't call it a sketchbook. These are just fabulous. There's just too much, it's just, they're an incredible piece of work. I wouldn't call it a sketchbook. And she came out and said, I will call it what I like. I thought, all right, then, dear, fair enough. I was only trying to compliment her, and she turned it on so somebody somewhere has insulted her, and she's taken it on me. But the idea that it's this is the result of doing something somewhere else, for me, is overcomplicating things. But it's one of those things, like I said, about the profession designating a way of doing it, and we have to comply. It's that one. So yeah, practice makes perfect. I mean, if that phrase doesn't illustrate my point, I don't know what does. Right? How many of you suffer from perfectionism? Right? And that is it's a curse. The reason why it's a curse is because you're too busy worrying about whether you're good enough to meet somebody else's standard, which goes back to this thing of what I said earlier. But you have to do it this way. This is how it should be done. But the phrase "practice makes perfect," that then immediately tells you that it's not a good way to look at things, is it? We're not trying to be perfect. Now, this idea that it has to be perfect. As I said, how many of you will suffer from that? I did, and I didn't get me anywhere. But as I said, I'm not there anymore. And of all the things, when I came back to doing this, things like that, understanding that perfectionism was a result of expectations, and then leading then to my expectations were to, first of all, my own personal expectation was to prove something, and then to my family and to friends and everybody else that I was actually worth something, that what I did was worth something. And that then led to the you know, the skill development stuff and all that kind of thing, that I can only be defined, my work can only be defined by the quality of the line and all that sort of, you know what I mean? It's like, wow, it's just like creative suicide. That's all it is. And I don't think people really understand that kind of thing, or even think about it that deeply. But it is. It is a curse, as I said. But that phrase, practice makes perfect, just blows out. If anybody says it's all about practice, just use that. And if they don't get it, if they don't get that, then you're not talking to an artist. You're talking to somebody that's just a doer, a producer, somebody who wants to enforce the rules, enforce the law. Judge Dredd, probably. So this thing of practice. So I put the comment on about practice yesterday, about joining in practice, about practice, and it is really about attention, because you don't, the skills that you develop and the skills that you need are always going to be fluctuating. They're not always going to be the same kind of skills. You're going to have basic skills, you're going to have the motor skills, you're going to have the observational skills and all that kind of stuff. But those you acquire those just simply by doing it. And the benefits of doing it, right, whether it's right or wrong, because one of the things you've got to get used to is the idea that there is no right and wrong, and it's simply you making work, and you have to love what you do. Unless you get to that point that I'm just gonna, I love what I do because I'm doing it. So if that makes sense. But unless you get to that point, you can never really understand about how skills are part of this, and they develop as part of this, and the concurrent to doing this, and you know, it's not an application skills. Oh, I've developed all these skills, now I'm going to, you know, put them to good use, which is all the cliche stuff that you hear all the time. But as I said, it's probably not the only thing I'm talking about. Probably not your usual way of looking at this, and which is why a lot of people, I think, don't watch my videos, because I'm saying stuff that is probably out of sync with what everybody else says. And at the end of the day, I'm just drawing faces. As somebody said to me the other week, you can hardly call yourself an artist because I just draw faces. But in a way, that's kind of the point. You know what I mean? I'm doing my thing, man. And this is my thing. This is my thing. This is the way my creativity needs. And if all I want to do is satisfy my creative desire, I'm doing it. Right? I'm not bothered. I don't care whether or not you think it's art or whether or not I'm meeting some criteria. I don't care. I think that's what people can't come to terms with. It's just your thing. This is your thing. So just do your thing. That's it. They don't have to do it like other people want you to do it. You don't have to follow the rules. Just do your thing. But anyway, so a lot of ranting this morning. I was going to apologize. I do apologize. For ranting. But if you don't get this stuff, if you don't connect with this stuff, then you're not really. You shouldn't really be here. You shouldn't really listen to me, because I'm probably going to be saying things that might upset or offend you. You know, I did that video about, you know, you shouldn't. This is not for you. And there was a guy that then took apart what I was talking about, and all I said to him was, "I told you this wasn't for you." Because it's true. There is, and that's, you know, that's the thing. And somebody was on about art yesterday, and making art, and I said that, you know, everybody's got this opinion that there are only certain kinds of art that are going to succeed, And I use the word succeed loosely because I'm not talking about galleries and competitions and whatever else. I'm talking about the actual effective manifestation of someone's creative vision or creative force. And the mere fact that I've said that tells you that this is infinite. It's infinite in the way that we can express our creativity and bring our and just think of that. Think of, this is why people are frightened of artists, not because they're odd and they live outside the normal social norms, although some do, some don't, rather. But it's not that. But this idea that there's a force that can be manifest in all kinds of forms that will challenge and question and illuminate and bring beauty into the world. The idea that there's a force that could do that, it's like, now if I was religious, I could say that was a God-given thing, because it is just astounding. And I think it's a testament to human evolution that there is that we have this force that is just designated mostly to a decoration, to a decorative use, and it's almost always associated with skill. That it's a skill. That it's you can't be creative unless you find the skills in order to be creative. That one, it's like, yeah, all right. It's still the Muggles trying to make out that it's just like anything else, really. You just have to keep doing it loads and loads of times, and then you get really good at it. No, it's not that. I suppose, in a way, what I'm saying is that it's this unstoppable force that you have to unleash and basically just stand back and let it do its magnificent thing, like a firework. You've got to do that. Otherwise, it's just going to be somebody else's definition, somebody else's decision as to whether it's any good. And that you never want to be in that position, even if it is just simply about. I always say this about, you got to pay the rent. I went off and became a coder, right, as far away from making art as you can imagine, and I hated it, but I was good at it because I'm creative, and creatives have an higher intellect than anyone else I know. Creatives are able to solve problems, which is mostly coding, and that is something that I tuned into. I mean, if I had to go and work at Amazon, which I did, on the lines, I did that. But I wouldn't. I think after the 1989 thing with the galleries saying, "Oh, you've got to keep painting the same thing because everybody likes the same thing every time," otherwise they don't know you as an artist. It's the collectors we're talking about, Get lost. Which is more or less what I said, and stop doing it. I wasn't gonna. If you could just paint a few more of these Paris scenes, they said. No. I mean, I painted the Paris scenes, which is a good example, really, of the whole motive thing, because it was my honeymoon when I went the first time, and I was in a place of euphoria, obviously, and that's what was in those portraits, in those Paris scenes, in the photographs. I mean, I took hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photographs of Paris, and in every one of those is that moment of euphoria, that being married to the love of my life, my soulmate. So I couldn't really recreate that in another copy of it. When you go on that, if you've been to Paris, Montmartre there, they've got these guys that've got sort of 6 or 7. They might have 9 of these little panels, and they're painting, Paris scenes. The most commercial thing I've ever seen, commercial art wise. And I was talking to one of them, and I said, I'm an illustrator and a graphic designer, and he said, "You are too commercial. You are not an artist. You are a commercial person." And I said to him, "This is the most commercial thing I've ever seen. You're knocking these little postcard-sized oils out like there's no tomorrow. You know, you might miss, and these days it'd be AI doing it. You can imagine the AI artists sat on Montmartre knocking these things out." But like I say, I made that decision that time, and I said, "No, I'm not doing this." And I'm going off. So if it's about the money side of things, if it's you're going to make some money out of it, then I'm not sure you can shield yourself from the damages of that. I don't think I could. I think that's another reason why I stopped, but because I couldn't shield myself from the damages of doing it to order. But the thing is, I knew firsthand. So I was, as I said, illustrating part-time, moonlighting, illustrating, weekends and whatever. But I was doing this thing to order, and I hated it. And then you do it to order with all the, you know, the lack of commitment and all that. Oh, I could draw another person sat on a bench, or, you know, a foot, you know, because we're selling shoes or whatever. I needed to illustrate the laces and all that. I could do that all over. And then, so you put all your effort into doing it reluctantly. You take it to the client says, "Oh, can you just move it to the left a bit?" You know, and these are the days when it wasn't computerized. So fixing a drawing or illustration back then was a job. Sometimes it meant doing it again. So all of that. So this is why I wouldn't paint to order. You know, when the gallery said I should paint to order. So I think I better just talk about the talent and the practice thing again, because it seems I've drifted off into, you know, my life story, as I do. But when I talk about those things, and I said to somebody the other day that all these things that I talk about, the things that formulate my ideas and my way of doing this. So I can't take those away. And I'm, in a way, illustrating the importance of those things. I think everybody's got that story. If you're prepared to think about this in a different way, that it's not just about how well I can master or draw a straight line. If you can think past that, I think you'll be a better artist. You will be the artist you should be, because you're no longer confined to someone else's perception of what you should be. It's like saying, isn't it, that just think what you could have been before you became what you were told to be, what the world wanted you to be. It's that. And this is the thing about doing this, is that this is the only place the only time in your life when you have full control of what it is, and yet you're gonna give that away to someone else who says, "Oh no, it must be done like this." You're gonna give that opportunity away to somebody else to tell you how it should be. No, you're not gonna. But as I said, the talent thing, I don't know whether it's. As I say, I have no faith, so I can't designate it to be a God-given thing. And the DNA thing, I can't even prove that, because my family were not artists. I had no creative intention or desire or whatever you want to say. There's nothing that was creative. My dad, when he was older, because of dementia, started doing cross stitch. So I have no idea. I mean, when they go to these classes, don't they? It's supposed to be things that will help. But that's the nearest I can say about my dad. It did, he did practical things. The thing is, he was a child of the, just after the war, the sort of 50s, and they were very handy. There were people that made things. There were people that had to. DIY was a kind of in its infancy, and they learnt, like my father-in-law, about electronics or electrics rather, and he fixed tellies and he just past recently, we were clearing a shed, it's full of valves. Valve, not seen valves for years, but he fixed tellies and he'd wire people's houses and all that kind of stuff. My dad was more of a painter, interior decorator kind of thing, and he'd make furniture and cupboards and all. But everybody, they all did that. They all had proper tools, It was before power tools for a lot of them. So if you wanted to put a screw in, you had to use a screwdriver, not or even a nail gun. A nail gun would be a complete waste of time to these guys. They could do it with the basic things, even sawing wood up. They use hand saws. God forbid. But yeah. So genetically, I no idea. Practice-wise, as I said, I'm worried that it's like misdirected, because that's one of the things about practice. It might be effective for certain things. I'm pretty sure it is. Playing the piano and all that kind of scales and whatever. And certainly with guitars, I suppose you can practice your scales on your guitar. But for doing this, I don't know. I think creativity has more to do with spontaneity than it has to do with preparation, and that goes against everything that we understand or know, because it's failing to prepare and all that nonsense. Well, that's fine if you go to business school. It's like, yeah, I understand, or you're planning a holiday or whatever. Then yeah, preparation is probably a good idea, but I think with this, it's probably you've got to prepare to be prepare for the unexpected. Is probably one of the things. If you want to put it in the real world context, that's probably what I'd say. But there's nothing better than actually doing it in this instance to improve your skills on your outcomes. Mainly because you just don't know. Provided you've got the right mindset, providing you're prepared to let yourself explore, as you saw with the start when I started this, provided you're prepared to do that, then you don't know what you're capable of. And if your capabilities are determined by your preparation, then what's the point in being creative? Creativity is all about the unexpected. It's all about not meaning for it to happen. Those are the things that matter. And as I said, you will develop skills. You will develop seeing skills and doing skills that are used and not used, but they're not intentional. And that's the main thing. They're not a consequence of deliberation. Because you don't know. And how would you? Yeah, I don't know. Practicing noses and all that sort of thing is a kind of known requirement. But even that is like this thing about the bone structure. I saw a guy banging on about the other day about, most people make this mistake of getting one eye lower than the other and all that. Why? Why are people like this? Just the reason why is because they're not looking properly. They're not connecting properly. They're not taking enough notice of what's before them. That's why. And there are people that do have eyes lower than one eye lower than the other. That's a fact. And maybe that's what they observed. But this idea that it's some kind of formula that they failed to apply, because even professionals do it as well, he says. What the heck's all that about? Told you I'm a bit of a ranting this morning. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that because it's almost done. I do like beards. As I said, if you want to, I'm back into charcoal. I'm getting back into charcoal. If you want to learn to draw with charcoal, draw beardy old men, because this is so forgiving. You just have to consider the tonality and the general direction of the strokes, and that's about it. There's nothing complicated about it, and you can move stuff around as well, because this is not a precious subject. The precision of their features isn't the same as if it was some opaline female that's got nothing on her face that you can actually attach to. Because that's one of the things. The other thing as well is that because there are components and anchor points everywhere, that you can say, right, it's the distance between there, and it's the distance between there, and it's the distance between there, and distance between there, and that between there, and then and all the anchors that are in there, and you're looking at local distances in there. You've got all of that, right, compared to a female face that's just got a cheekbone, the side of a nose, and then maybe an ear. You know what I mean? And so what is there to draw? It's just a, it's a balloon. You know what I mean? It's just an egg. It's just why probably people would draw eggs. Anyway. So as I said, I'm going to leave it at that because I think I'll just keep ranting if I'm not careful. Yeah, it's a bit small, but it's okay. It's okay. Right. So the conclusion is, I don't know, and I'm not even going to try and explain the talent and or practice thing, other than my thoughts on those things. But whatever you believe, is right, then it's right, isn't it? I would say that the most important thing is you question this stuff. That's the most important thing. Don't just take it as read that it's the only way. If someone says practice is the only way, you just question it. I make portraits all the time, and as you know, and in a way, that's me practicing. I make work. That's my practice. I don't do it somewhere else. I don't keep a sketchbook. I just make work. And as I said, I didn't really say it, but the side effect to this determination and attitude of and just enjoying it is that you enjoy doing it, and regardless of the outcome, this is back to you must always like your outcome, and because you enjoy doing it, you won't stop doing it. It's one of those kids in a sweet shop thing. You won't stop doing it. If you don't stop doing it, you inevitably get better. So the practice thing is irrelevant because you are in fact practicing it because you simply keep doing it all the time. So it's inevitable that you get better. You can't not get better. So if you love what you do, if you love doing it, you'll inevitably get better. It's a simple fact. So that, in a way, I would say that takes care of itself. So the need to set aside practice time or whatever is a waste of time. Because if you're doing it right, you don't need to do that. You don't need to develop a sketching habit and all the rest of it. If you do, you're not doing it right. So, as I say, I'm done now. Just come back to what I was saying about the surface and the charcoal. I've managed. Some of it's going on here, and I'm still going to put more clarity into the ribs, just to help it a little bit. Not much. You can see even by just doing bits of it. I'm not bothered about illustrating every rib, so I'm not being that accurate, but it gives the impression of. This is the whole point. This is an impression of. If I get the light right on it and the form right on it, I'm pretty much happy with it. I don't need to tell you that it's a ribbed beanie hat or whatever it is. You know what ribbing looks like, so I don't need to illustrate that. But the charcoal and its propensity to be a little bit too ready to blend and get too smooth, as opposed to having the sharpness. I've kind of given into just larger shape definition, as opposed to trying to get the more crisper lines in it. And that's me adapting to the using the charcoal. I think that's one of the things you've got to do. You know, you're never gonna. Well, you can if you can afford it, but I can never afford to use the same paper all the time. And so you got to get used to sudden changes in things, just you would when you're, you know, in environment or working with a different model. You've always got to have that capability to adapt and be aware of what's happening as well. That's another thing. So a lot of people aren't conscious. They're too busy trying to draw, but they're not conscious of what's happening. But providing that's the case, you can be conscious of what's happening and adapt accordingly. Then, you know, it's the same thing. You know, when you thought, oh, the eyes aren't quite in the right place, you adapt. You as long as you're aware and you don't go down the road of trying to put too much finish on it before it's actually figured out it's actually in the wrong place, which is going back to the, you know, early sketching thing that I did. Providing you've gone through that, oh, well, that's where it lives, and I'm certain of it, and therefore I can, you know, I can afford to put a bit more effort into it. But the idea that every time you use it, this is back to the practice thing, really, that every time you use it, it's going to be exactly the same. And then you're going to get people that will tell you that, you know, you must always use this paper and you must always use that paper and you must always use this charcoal and so on and so forth. They themselves are locked into this regular, and the idea of regular practice results in a certain outcome, and that it can't be anything other. They're locked into that. So I think the practicing people are really locked into an expectation of outcome, which is against what I believe it should be. You should never, you know, it'll turn out however it turns out, and that's part and parcel of having the right mindset. But yeah, so as I said, the charcoal is not brilliant. The paper is not brilliant, but doesn't mean to say that I can't enjoy doing it and produce something reasonable out of it. Right, I'm off. It's an hour of me ranting. Sorry about that.